So what if I tell you that buying a GitHub Copilot is like buying a Jacquard loom in the 19th century and leaving it in your living room? Powerful? Yes. But without the factory, the processes, governance, and quality checks, it won't scale. So today, we look at three parts: build, scaled, and operate, and what you need to make sure that it doesn't break your system. So you might not know me, but Vasilika already, unfortunately, blocked my speech. So you might not know me or the Jacquard loom. So I'm Aleksandr Regner, but most people call me Sasha. I'm CTO of Ippon Technologies in Strasbourg and Luxembourg, and the Jacquard loom, it was a 19th century invention, often called the first programmable machine. So let me say a couple of words about Ippon. We're a consulting company. Our DNA is community and software craft. But here is a question. Do you know what happened to the crafters during the first industrial revolution? Probably someone. Okay. So the creation of the Jacquard loom and other machines shifted production from guild-based craft to wage labor. Productivity soared from 5 yards of cotton a day to 200 yards on a power loom with just one operator. But not everyone was happy about these new machines. Crafters vandalized and sabotaged them, blaming them for unemployment, de-skilling, and reducing the prestige of artisanal labor. So they were named Luddites. And notice anything similar today? So luckily, the Luddites aren't storming Google data centers at night to wreck the GPU farm, at least not yet. So GitHub Copilot, Windsurf, Cursors, these tools are like the Jacquard loom. They can weave complex patterns, but they still need an operator. Someone keeping the threads aligned, fixing breakages, plotting flows, and designing the new cards. And our world, unfortunately or fortunately, isn't the 19th century anymore. It's more complex. And today's loom is probabilistic. Sometimes the code compiles, sometimes it fails, and sometimes it looks brilliant, until you find the security holes in your application. That's why the judgment, governance, and integration matter. Without the operator, the assistants don't produce clothes, they produce scraps. And unlike clothes, code is living only has value when it lives in the system. So let's start with the obvious question. Do coding assistants really speed us up? Measuring developer productivity has never been easy. And every time I've tried, I've met resistance because nobody likes being measured. That's why I want to clarify. The productivity is about the scale. It's not measuring or judging individual developers. It matters because it gives us the one thing, the ability to experiment and stay objective about the impact on speed and quality across the whole system, not about the individual. So let's talk about the experiment. And the first experiment was in 2023. Microsoft researchers tested GitHub Copilot built on OpenAI's Codex model. The task was simple, just to build an HTTP server on JavaScript. And the metrics, just to this success and how long it took. Now here is the question, what was the impact on the performance? I can continue in monologue way, but it's better if you suggest.
I decided my divorce.
It was positive.
Okay, so with AI developers finished 56% faster. But what was also interesting is that developers' perception. They thought that their productivity improved by only 35%, so underestimating the real gain by 20. But here is the catch. The participants in that experiment were freelancers. So they were working in a setup far removed from real enterprise level development. So let's move to something bigger, a randomized control experiment run at Google in 2024. The researchers asked three things. So what was the impact of AI on the time to complete real enterprise tasks? Second, how does the developer and the task itself change that impact? And third, why do some tasks and developers speed us up with AI and the others slow down? So in Microsoft experiment, GitHub Copilot suggested code and entire function much like advanced after completion. Google, however, tested 3 features. So it's AI code completion similar to Copilot. Smart paste, it's a copy-paste shortcut that shows only high confidence suggestions and crosses out the text to be replaced. And the third is natural language to code, a prompting window that lets developers ask the model for code fixes. So what happens? Once again, what do you think about the performance, how it's changed? 21% faster, 96 minutes versus 114 minutes without AI. Here is something interesting about that the effects were negative when adjusted for seniority or how frequently developers use the AI. So sure, we have plenty of studies proving that AI has got faster, millions of LinkedIn posts, but here is the other story, the deskilling. Remember the story of Leo, an entrepreneur, zero coding background, who launched his own SaaS solution with the clients, 100% built on Cursor. No? So one night, it all came crashing down thanks to SQL injections. So, and back in 2023, Andrei Karpathy, who is OpenAI alumni and later Tesla director of AI, said this: the hottest new programming language is English. And was he right about that? What do you think? Yep. So 2 years later, we are moving past vibe coding. Today, prompts and context are the new programming interface. And that means that we need to build new skills. So just 4 months ago, my colleague Louis Lenoir published a fantastic white paper on prompt-driven development. It shows how things are changing, what came before, how developers started hacking AI with clever prompts, and how you can try yourself out just after this talk. And yes, the white paper is in French, so for someone, it may be a practice. So if we talk about that, a few years back, AI in the EDA felt like autocomplete on the steroids. It handled boilerplate, its quick fixes, little time savers, but it couldn't see the big picture. It didn't care about the architecture. And back then, AI was just a pair of fast hands. But here is a question. What happens when AI moves from the hands to an actual teammate? And that's the advanced use of AI as a coworker. Instead of complete this line, you say build a minimal social network. Of course, it's a little bit exaggerated example, but suddenly agent starts to collaborate. One does DevOps, another writes tests, another codes, another updates the backlog. And now your task is more to how you can orchestrate that. And in just hours, you can go from nothing to a working MVP. So if you want to see, you can follow the playbook in Louis' paper and make sure to thank him on LinkedIn. So in the phase build, we're already seeing about 25% minimum of performance gain. But the biggest shift is that the developers aren't just coding anymore. They are orchestrating AI agents. And that changes everything. So if after complete was the spinning wheel, coding agents are the Jacquard loom. And just like the loom needed factories to unleash its power, we now need AI factories of our own. The workflow, standards, orchestration, and the structures that let this revolution scale. So let's look at agents beyond coding assistance and how we can improve our software development lifecycle for both AI agents and developers. So it's time for another experiment. So let's be honest, everyone has felt that code review is slow and time-consuming practice. So probably if you got a trunk-based development, canary deployments, automatic rollbacks, maybe you don't need a code review. But reviews are still one of the best practice how you can share the knowledge. So here is a question. Do AI code review assistants like Codo or CodeRabbit really help? Beko, a global company, tried it. They used an AI-assisted review tool based on the open source Codo pull request agent. So it was around 200 developers who were working on 3 projects. There were 4,000 pull requests, and 1,500 from them went through automated reviews. So just a small adjustment on the scheme that was dedicated to the AI agent. And what's happened? 74% of my comments in the pull request were resolved automatically. But PR closure time actually went up from under 6 hours to more than 8. So, of course, my take, it's more reviews, so you have more work in progress. So let's take Google. With millions of... yeah.
So they only did the automatic review and they completely stopped doing manual reviews?
No, you have all the comments.
Yeah.
So you already have this suggestion from the AI agent, and you need just to resolve it, and that's all. Okay. So you don't need to write the comments. You don't. You just verify what was suggested by the AI. But in that case, why it's important? The second, it's how much time we spend on the pull request, the time that pull request really lives. So in that case, before it was 6 hours, because the amount of the pull requests were less, and then it was an 8. So you have the constraint that a complexity that transferred from the code review itself to when the developers spend time on writing the comments to the just to become like a typical constraint, like a work in progress. So it's waiting the other bottleneck, the next bottleneck.
So it took longer, but there were more tasks.
Yeah.
They try to measure quality, which is always complicated, but
yeah, they try to measure quality. So it was but it wasn't any negative statistically significant fluctuations, I would say. So so in that case, we basically with AI agents you can't remove the complexity. You transfer the complexity from one to the others. So that's why if you're using the AI code assistant, it doesn't give you a lot. It gives you productivity, but you have to be sure about the quality at the other side.
I think it does not remove complexity from you as owner of the PR, but it can reduce complexity from the people who is reviewing.
Yep.
They can probably deceive, okay, if it was already reviewed by AI, spot less things.
Yeah, and you can automatically inject the change. So you don't need to write code. You don't need to use the manual task, I would say. Yeah, so the other example is about Google. It's about the... Yeah?
Last question, are you using a public AI model? Public one?
Here?
In your use case.
Yeah. You have the Kodo and CodeRabbit. It's something that you can use. Kodo is open source. So of course, if you... Model is public. It depends on the license. So if you buy an enterprise license, of course, this data won't be used by Kodo, by the companies that created this. But you can just fork the repository with the model. And for example, if you use, I don't know, Llama, you can host it yourself on your server. But of course, you need to invest in it. If you use something that's available free, so of course, any data will, the model will be re-educated by your data. So the Google, with millions of APIs, the chaos is never far away. And Google, it's basically if you have a mature organization, all the communication between different services, they made by APIs, synchronous or synchronous. And here, without the governance, you get inconsistency, you get painful reviews, endless bottlenecks, and delayed launches of the product. So, and Google answer for this was an API governance program. So you have the clear rules through API improvement proposals, the automation with an API linter, a reviewer certification program called API readability, and the final API design reviews. So what they did, they they created an AI agent which called AI Architect, which received only 5 of 10 quality reviews if we compare it to the experts. But nevertheless, it reduced the amount of work of the architect who was a bottleneck. Again, that's the same story. We transfer some complexity. And the next example comes from my colleague, Jean-Rémy and Jean-Michel at Ippon. It's an API governance program built on the API's green score developed by the French collective API Thinking. So disclaimer, I have to say that neither Ippon nor I are members of this initiative, but we fully acknowledge the value of their work and are glad to share it with you. So basically, this framework evaluates APIs across 4 areas: the architecture, the design, the usage, and login. And each area is broken down into different into specific rules and the best practices, scored just in a simple way, yes or no. And of course, each rule has their own weight. And at the end, you receive your API green score. Using this methodology, we created an agent assistant for API analysis and design. So it replaced tedious manual API design reviews. And the API green score, of course, is just the tip of the iceberg. You have the automated API diagnosis, eco-design, multi-level analysis, and it's also comes with optimized performance. But what's really important, as I said, in Ippon, we value craft. So we value the quality. And for us, it's important that we can customize the design review by our own guidelines, but also with the guidelines of our client or the business context. And frankly speaking, here you have the scheme, how it works. You have the different members of team who communicates with different interfaces. You have the use case guidelines with the quality that comes from our client on business context or business rules, and you have the Ippon guideline. Then, in parallel, different LLMs works with the custom context, and they just review the design of the APIs. So, if you want to go really deeper with this Gen API, you can scan the QR code, but nevertheless, all the sources will be on the last slide. So these two examples show that even now we can't replace architects, but we can already simplify life with governance that's still created by the humans. And ask the question, because I was about 4 hours in my car going from Lille to Luxembourg, so I may look a little bit fatigué.
So so in this chapter, you would like to highlight how basically AI helping not writing code but helping with the processes.
Yes.
Inside the company.
Yeah, basically, yeah, I mentioned that you have the AI agent.
Yeah.
We can't say that AI agent is like a junior developer. It's not the same, but nevertheless, you have to create your system. How you scale. Before it was, for example, if you remember, there was a team of 5, 6, 7 people who can create, say, Google. Now it's not the case. So you need to have this governance. You need to have the rules how you play, because you need to orchestrate. If AI agents, it's like.
But like any serious company, it has those governance rules, but probably the difference is that you can represent them in a way of AI agents. I don't know, like imagine I'm opening a new project in my company, and this project for sure there is some company standards how we do use things like ABC, how we write Terraform, how we do things, how we name Kafka topics, for example. And it actually would be great to have such kind of AI agent who would be checking those kind of standards.
Yeah. For example, this is one for the APIs. You have the APIs, naming convention, and so on. You know what is the best practice. Yeah. You have the guidelines. You add to the context. And voila, you don't spend time on the tedious work when you need to review the design. The AI agent will highlight you what is wrong with the API, so you can first deliver the new version with a decent quality.
Yeah, that's quite cool. I'm aware about Google API improvement process,
Mhm.
the one you mentioned in the first slide, but I read it as a standard on the text. But actually, if you could encode the standards to the AI who can do some good reviews about it, then that's a cool thing.
We have a problem with the window, with the context window, but basically now you can use any recent text for the human. So it's like you can just add as a context. If you have enough window to process it, you just share. If you don't have, you can use the A2A protocol, MCP. So you add, your repository with all the rules, and AI agent will follow them. But that's also another question how you can check. So the another case, it's about code migration. So it's about Uber, and you know that Uber loves Kotlin, and they are part of the Kotlin Foundation. So once they decided to migrate millions of lines of Java to Kotlin. So in the handcrafted way, like in the pre-factory days, it was estimated 8+ years. Imagine that now someone in Uber started to refactor that. Then they tried the plugin that was the plugin for the EDA that was built by themselves, built on meta processors. So they use the processors to clean code, to preserve history, and enforce the different idioms. But even then, the projection was still slow and about 4 years. So they brought in LLMs mining migration patterns from past commits. It was faster, safer, but still not enough, and the projection was 3 years. So what came next? It's the agentic AI with the MCP that orchestrates tools, it retries, it debugs, and it generates the rules also. And with this approach, the time dropped by 2 years, but also the migration was safe at scale and without burning out the teams. So as you see, AI at small scale is living at home. So scaling is more like running a factory. Suddenly you cared about efficiency, the trade-offs, and who forgot to oil the machine. The code reviews, API governance, code migration still needs humans to make a good product and make decisions, but the complexity transfers from how just to make the code migration, but how to create the system around that.
Why would a company want to migrate from Java to Kotlin, spending two company years? What benefit does it bring?
Frankly speaking, you can go and watch the video from the Uber to get all the details, but in that case, they have a problem with the performance, and probably, sometimes you have the problem with money because Java started to they started to ask more to when you code on Java, you have to pay.
License.
Yeah. So frankly speaking, I've never thinking about how that work, but I know that Java is not really extremely open, I would say. So if you look at the 5 years or 7 years or 10 years ago, why Microsoft became the one of the players on the market because they did the open source with the VS Code and also with .NET Core. In Java didn't do that. It was the same with the Kotlin. So you have the advantages also because of the price, also because of the openness of the ecosystem that was created by the company, and so on.
You also have something else. It's like for unification just of the code, because Java and Kotlin might be similar, but in the end you still have some productivity hits.
Yeah.
People know one language by heart and the other one they have trouble with it. So I don't know how many developers it was how many developers they have, but they have to split between the languages also.
Yeah, probably yes, because there was a tendency about the microservice architecture, and usually it led to I wouldn't say that it was a zoo of technologies, but nevertheless, it was more variety of technologies that needs to be addressed. Yes.
This tool that they did use it to migrate from Java to Kotlin is used to write code, you mean, in Kotlin? Or
basically, yes and no, because if you see here, you have everything that is on the scheme. There is Java, there is Kotlin, and everything is here. It's the agentic AI that writes the code, that retries, debug, that generates the new rules for the migration, and so on. So the point is that, again, if you will use just the model to rewrite the code, you will fail at the end. Now, for example, the worst task that you can ask for cursor client on any model that codes is to refactor something in a big project.
To be honest, I'm using cursor and cloud code a lot, and I always review the code because I don't trust it that much. But in this case, in case of Uber, I think they are using any AI agent to review the code.
Yes. Yeah. And they build, so once again, you transfer this complexity. You don't think about how to rewrite code. You think about how to create the rules. So be sure that so it's like a quality check. It's like a sonar group and so on. So you have the static analysis, you have the architecture quality gates and so on. Now with the agentic AI, it's a little bit simpler.
You basically you can go to the commit history, take any like start from the first commit, send the commit to the AI agent to rewrite it from Java to Kotlin, and then like repeat like over and over. Because I think with the CI, each of the commit is fine. So they basically like incrementally rebuild it, and I think LLMs are quite good in migrating from one code base to another.
If you create the system like that, yes.
What do you personally think, Aleksandr, about this use case?
About the migration itself?
So to me, it looks like, I'm maybe an old schooler, but to me it looks like a training a model at the prompt level. So instead of building the training pipeline for the model itself, which is problem agnostic, general purpose model, they build a pipeline for training it at the prompt level, constantly improving the prompts themselves. That is like, do you support this approach? Do you think it's the future?
I think I have a great answer for that. It depends on the context. No, for sure, but sometimes you can just use the Vertex AI and don't think about the quality because you have nothing. I mean, even if you will have something, it gives you value. Then that's the question of the industrialization. If we talk about the 8 years, about I don't know how many lines of codes, of course it's better to create a system that will be working after if something will happen. For example, here we speak about the migration from Java to Kotlin, but they may also include some architecture shifts also. So if this model will be used after, for example, the rule generation as a quality checks, why not? If there is a small problem where you can train, retrain your model to get the perfect results, why not also? So yes, regarding the scale, when we establish the scale, we need to know how to keep the factory running. So let's talk about the third part. It's about the operate. It's keeping the factory running. So who's ever written a postmortem? One person. That's why I know why you ask this question. Okay, so who has ever been dragged into P0 incident? P0, it means that you lose millions.
So it is one thing.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So basically, I had one last year ago. So we were losing really millions of euro of turnover in an hour. 15 people were pulled in, scrambling to fight the fire. Then we need to communicate with the other team, and so on, so on. But really, the hardest part wasn't really to fix the problem, but how we can prevent. And our write-up, our post-mortem was really good. So it was like, you can just met it on the wall, but only because we poured days into it. And then I saw another postmortem that was written with a small incident. So basically, it was really funny because it consisted of 2 phrases, like "never do it again" or something like that. So yes, but nevertheless, it's really important. And Datadog, they simplified the drafting of the postmortem. And the challenges here was really different, because if you use the LLM to create something, you have a problem of that LLM is probabilistic. And in postmortem, you have to be clear on the facts. And the other Yeah, so and the other was about the trade-offs, and that's something that similar to the code migration and similar to the problems that we have on scale. So if we try to solve a little task with LLM, probably you won't get this result. But you have the Slack context, the unstructured data, you have the incident metadata, the observability metrics, and how you can go from 20 minutes to 23 seconds. You need to create and understand how we can parallel things. But then if you will use, for example, the Cloud Opus, which is the last version of the model, the most powerful one, you will pay a price for that. So you have to also to decompose the task, decompose the postmortem, where the LLM, where the model which is cheaper can give you the same result as a model which is which cost more. So, and it was in 2024. In 2025, Datadog released their Bits AI. It's a set of autonomous AI agents. So the first, it's a alert investigation, and if you ever use a Datadog or the tool like that, probably when you enter on the incident, the first that you try to do is to generate hypothesis what's happening. And here, the Bits AI, it generates the hypothesis before you join the call. So you receive a call and you have the picture what may happen in your system. It really facilitates the resolving of the incidents. The second is a dev agent. So probably it's something that is similar to the Copilot and so on. But the difference is that it's based on the observability data. So it's based on the latency issues, regressions, errors, and so on. And it proposes you the code fixes. So you have the GitHub, you have your repository with your code, for example. But Datadog, it give you another point of view. It gives you the view from the telemetry. And the last, it's about the security analyst. So it conducts in-depth investigation of potential threats, which is also important nowadays because the security becomes more and more important. So we've covered a little bit, and the natural question: where do you start? So you can start by finding the pain. So where do developers waste time? Here a quick poll might help you. If you are on Datadog or a platform like that with AI features, you can literally start tomorrow. Just remember to measure the results. And here is a trick: begin where you can't really make things worse. So for example, if you don't have any documentation, let the AI draft them, but even if it's wrong, at least someone will correct it. And about the scaling that's different. So for industrial use, nevertheless, you need foundations. And here, my advice is to build a finished, valuable platform. Sometime, even the small documentation, like it was mentioned about the rules of the rules of how we create the API may help. And then AI can integrate it cleanly.
I have a comment on this. Like, a lot of things are great, but I think the biggest hurdle is actually the corporate adoption, because most of us, we work in the companies, and we basically have to wait until we get clear corporate policies on how and how not we can use AI. And a lot of tools which exist on the market, and they're fascinating, but they're just not approved by the privacy reasons or compliance reasons. Or you just, like you would like to to try a cool thing, but like at the second you're thinking about sending a letter to the compliance team, you're like, this is headache.
So probably the best recommendation here is check with what company you have a contract. If you have a contract with Google, you have Gemini. If you have a contract with Azure or Microsoft, you may use, because in this contract basically there is a privacy rules. So you, frankly speaking, 2 years ago we received analysis from our compliance team about how we use AI. It was about 55 pages of clear compliance text, So, yeah. Basically, there was just one phrase. You can use only Gemini because we have a license. Yeah, you can use Gemini, plus you can use GitHub Copilot.
Yeah, but I mean, the Gemini counts, but Gemini might not be having PR review things or like some other cool things. So that's the difficulty, that we have to wait until this functionality will become available inside our legally approved framework.
Yes, but for example, if we talk about Google, about Gemini, you have the agent space. So basically, if you have the Google Cloud or something like that, if you have a Google Workspace, you have the access to agent space. So you go to the agent space and you create your own agent. Probably it won't produce you the pull request with the same quality, but at least you can try. So thanks, that was my second take of the speech. So yep, and if you want, we can help with that. It's also my colleague Paul Boisson, LinkedIn, who is responsible for the platform as a service, I would say. So yep, I totally lost what I wanted to say. Yeah, so nowadays developers, they don't use just one assistant. They will orchestrate thousands of the AI operators. And what happens? We all need the same basics. We need the documentation and the governance. And the good news is, as I said, you don't need a team of ML engineers or data scientists to try. With tools like Vertex AI, with Agent Space from Google, you can run experiments in weeks and not years, as it was before, when you need to try your own model sur mesure. Sorry for my French. So, and remember that the Loom didn't just way faster, it's changed the way the work was organized. And AI agents will do the same. It's just my vision. So my advice is, don't be the modern Luddites. That story did end well. So thanks a lot. Here's my LinkedIn if you want. There are list source, and if you write me on LinkedIn, I will share the presentation with you. Thanks.
Thank you.
So, questions?
You personally, you use for coding, or you have one of the mentioning process optimizations?
We have Gen API that we created. It gives really a lot. I use it avant-vente, pre-sales, because really you have to accumulate all your expertise that you have to find the right cases. Coding, yes, but basically we use Klein with OpenRouter. So we and we use Gemini also for that, but not Gemini, really the notebook LM. There are some tricks that in the paper. So for example, you need to push that this guy has this role, this agent has the role of the developer, and you have the increase of quality right away in 20%. Then we also, for one of the French bank, we are building a platform. We already built a platform. Now we developing the platform for them, platform for the developers. We are 2 weeks ago. We started to create a VS Code plugin that helps developers to migrate to the newer version of the API. So, for example, the new API version came, and this plugin will show all the difference and also will provide the context to what you have to on what you have to provide more attention in the migration processes. So basically, it's everywhere. And if you talk about the coding assistance, it's a little bit different. If, for example, you can use the GitHub Copilot only in mode of the auto completion. And also the good thing is that you can add your own rules, like the guidelines in the Gen API case. You add your own rules of craft. For example, we use TDD, DDD, and the clean code approaches. So you just push that, and by MCP, the Copilot knows what code it should suggest to you, in what format.
We should have a talk about MCP. It's actually so many diverse uses of it.
Yeah.
Like I mean, right now it's also could be used as an API and the cycle. So, but it's just my note. But the question for you, like I mean, I believe you and me work for a long time in the industry, and the things has changed a lot in the years, and the things are changing right now even faster. So my question to you: how do you see development, like in the 5 and 6 years? So how do we ever will write a code, or maybe we'll be just talking to the screen and then code will be written for us?
We will.
Not like here, because next year I believe you can predict.
Yeah.
But like let's jump 5 years, which is right now feels as a distant future.
You know, I can compare myself with Andrei Karpathy, for example, but around 3 months ago, I wrote a good article on my LinkedIn. So basically, for me, it's just another level of abstraction. So remember, when we speak about the software development, when we speak about the operational system development, it's one level of abstraction. You need to think about the semaphores. You need to think about different things. When you when you use .NET or Java or any language, or Node.js, for example, JavaScript, but the framework like Node.js, you have a different level of abstraction. And remember what was with autocomplete. When autocomplete arrived, probably I was still at school, but I've heard that a lot of developers, they started, it's de-skilling, because before I had to remember all the methods in the class. And now the guy who's just graduated from the school, he just start typing get string and he will receive all the methods, all the. So it was the same resistance. And for me, we will code, but we will code mostly about the system around the code. So like Uber made with their code migration, the same with Gen API. So basically, you need to create system in which the agents will work with a decent quality and with a decent performance.
Yeah, interesting. So, like, imagine you're starting your first day in a new company in 5 years. So basically, what you're going to do, you're going to be introduced to the bunch of agents who does the work.
I think it's already happening. But when you join the company, probably you have at least one AI buddy that will give you all the necessary information. You ask how to get the RTT, and you will.
I haven't experienced the AI buddy, AI onboarding buddy.
Are they using the agents you talked about your code workflow and your engineering, but do they use it in your company for management decisions as well?
For management decision? I don't think so, because I think that's a problem, because AI, it's artificial intelligence. It's not intelligence itself. When you take a decision, of course, you may use to make an analysis, to get the deep search, to make a deep search, and so on. But later, you can't transfer the responsibility to the AI agent. So when you make decision by your own, thanks to the more deeper analysis, for example. So that's my case. But I don't know. Probably, I speak French. I live in France, but I'm not French. Probably for French people, can we cut it? Yes. I mean, my phrase about French. So no, but probably for some cultures, yeah, for some cultures, transfer the responsibility itself. It's a really good point. And for some decisions like what I need to buy, to wear, for example, for my, I don't know, for my birthday or something like that, why not? But if we speak about the strategy, the vision of the company, I don't think that's a good decision. Just to ask, the interview process. Like, you script the guy and you say, what do you think about this guy? And he says, hire. And you, okay, I hire the guy.
Because it's also biased, or not also somehow biased as well.
Yep.
By the data.